221-12681. Offices in Baton Rouge. Now, The Hunt Palmer Show. You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hunt Palmer coming to you from Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Friday. It means we're brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. It's a damp one, kind of a muggy one here in Baton Rouge, but it's a Friday nonetheless. Work week is winding down. We appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. One of my favorite times of year. Plenty to get to. Spring football with Preston Guy of TigerBait.com in 15 minutes. Talking baseball with Chris Demouy, former Tiger Southpaw, at 1:30. I've got you getting ready for LSU and Missouri in the PMAC on senior night tomorrow. Some NIT thoughts. LSU Xavier from the box this weekend. So lots and lots to get to. So buckle up for the next 2 hours. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Pizzali back there on the ones and twos. Let's get moving with some LSU football. Yesterday, we gave you some of the sound from Brian Kelly as he addressed the media for the first time during spring football. We talked about some of the changes on the defense, Harold Perkins, some of the staff members as well, talked about the progression of Shelton Sampson. But Brian Kelly had some other things to say to the media. And one of these topics is not earth-shattering. It is very much an obvious talking point of this spring and will be a talking point as we move through August to the opener in Las Vegas against USC. But nonetheless, I like to hear it from the horse's mouth, to use a cliche. I like to hear it from Brian Kelly as opposed to us just sitting here and ballyhooing about. So let's hear Brian Kelly talking about replacing Jaden Daniels specifically as a runner.
You can do it with, perimeter throws that Jaden gave us with perimeter runs. And you can do it not simply with the running backs, but how you use your offensive line. We think that we've got, if not one of the best, certainly one of the top offensive lines in the country. And they're athletic as well. We think our tackles can move and pull. So I think a run game that now becomes a lot more diversified in the sense that we can start moving and pulling our offensive linemen to create an offensive running game that strikes on a much wider front. I think certainly the running backs will play a part in this, but I think the focus needs to be much more on how the offensive line will play a much larger role in what we do to enhance our running game.
That is absolutely the way that I see it as well. It's incumbent upon the LSU offensive line to change the way that LSU runs the football. Now, Jaden Daniels ran for over 1,000 yards last year, and there was some of it that was designed. I would suggest, without doing the research, I'm sure someone has, that most of that was off script. Play breaks down, pass rush gets to him, just extending plays and making things happen. Now, sometimes they did a design run and he got it upfield, and there was a degree of that in the offense that I don't believe will be in the offense very much this year. Some, but not very much. And there's certainly a degree of read option where you might have a quarterback run, you might have a give, and I think that will be in there still a little bit, maybe not as much. It'll just be a traditional give there. But the offensive line's got to play better and play differently. You don't want to be too committed to anything with the offensive line with the understanding of how much improvisation Jaden Daniels can do. It behooves you to just set things up front, run your play, and if things break down, then just let Jaden use the whole field. Don't make him go one way or another. Let him have all 53 yards wide and make them defend it. You don't really have that with Garrett. So you're going to have to block it and make sure everybody's on the same page and go in the right direction. So I think that's obviously what you're going to see. If you look at Garrett Nussmeier's career rushing statistics, and obviously he hasn't played a ton, 18 games, he's run the ball 7 times, and if you use sack yardage, negative 58 yards. So it's not as if he's never had a run over a yard. Like it's not, he just doesn't run. So I think he's pretty athletic, and he will run more than he did previously. Keep in mind, you come into the game against Georgia in the SEC championship game, you're down $1 million, you got to throw. Running does you no good. You come into the game in Tuscaloosa last year after Jaden goes out, you're down 2 scores, you got to throw. So he's come into some games where running the football was not an option. So these stats are skewed a little bit, but he hasn't run very much. I think he's a Matt Flynn type athlete, not quite as good an athlete as Joe Burrow. So a good athlete that can get you 7 or 8 if something breaks down, but that's not going to be in the playbook a ton. It's going to have to be the offensive line and the running backs picking up the slack. And the person who's in charge of getting all this figured out is, of course, Joe Sloan, who was elevated from the quarterback's coach to the offensive coordinator, depending on what you want to tag Cortez Hankton with. And Brian Kelly spoke to why he chose Joe Sloan as offensive coordinator. We're going to wait for a second for that one. We'll get to it in a second. But I think, and we'll hear from Brian Kelly, but I think one of the things that we've already heard from Garrett Nussmeier this spring is just how comfortable he is with Joe Sloan. And while there has been shakeup at coordinator on both sides of the football, this one is not as drastic. This is a guy who's been working with Garrett Nussmeier for 2 years now, so there's going to be a lot of familiarity. And here's Brian Kelly talking about Joe Sloan.
He's been on a job interview for a couple of years. I've gotten a chance to work with him. I've been in the quarterback meeting room. That's where I sit when I get a chance to be involved. So I've been around him, and I know what that position requires to be the offensive coordinator. And so I just felt like he had the leadership capabilities, the intellect, the understanding of what I was looking for in terms of our offensive identity and philosophy, and felt like it was his time.
So if you hear that, one of the most important pieces of that bite is Brian Kelly telling you where he sits when he's got some time. If you've been listening, you heard Chip Kelly say that it was just too much being the head coach. He wants to coach football, because a lot of times as the head coach, you're not coaching football. You heard Nick Saban say that he's not coaching a lot of football. He's having to do a lot of different things and manage a lot of different personalities and situations that arise in the football program. You heard, I can't recall his name, but the head coach from Boston College, who's now up calling plays for Green Bay, said, I don't coach any football. So, the head coach has got a lot on his plate and he's doing a lot of different things. There's not a lot of time for meetings. But when Brian Kelly can sit in meetings, he's not sitting with Frank Wilson and the running backs. He's not sitting there with the DBs. He's not working with the special teams. He sits in the quarterback room. That's where he feels his input is most important. And obviously that's a huge cog in the machine that is a football team, how well your quarterback is coached up and how well they're performing. But the part that he keeps adding on to there is he says, I've heard Joe Sloan do this. He's already been on a job interview. So I do think that likely Brian Kelly has the best feel of all the departments that are in his Fortune 500 company that is this LSU football program, from recruiting to special teams to offensive line to the transfer portal to quarterbacks to the defensive coordinator, to all these departments he's got to oversee. The one he probably has the best feel for is the quarterback room and offensive game planning. And so for that reason, I feel really good about the decision to elevate Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton to keep doing this. It feels like Brian Kelly's got the best feel for what they've been coaching, what the terminology looks like, what the relationships are look like, and where this thing is headed. Clearly, LSU had one of the best offenses we've ever seen last year. They had the best offense in college football. That's not really the bar to me. That would be great if they did that again, but that's not really the bar. I just want them to be really good. And it feels like they've given themselves the best opportunity to be that, and he thinks that the guys that are there, although they weren't central casting last year, that would have been Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas and Mike Denbrock, they were supporting cast. They're now ready for the bright lights. I feel pretty good about that because, again, there's just so much that Brian Kelly has to deal with, but this has been where he's been the most closely involved. So we're not going to learn every single nuance to this running game in the spring. That's not what it's for from our perspective as talking heads. They're installing over there. We're not going to see a lot of it. They're getting their feet wet. They're understanding how this thing's got to change, even though a lot of the guys are back from last year. and we're not going to go out there in Tiger Stadium for the spring football game and go, oh, look, see that? Oh, that's a change. Wow. That's okay. That's new. You're not going to see that. You will see that in Vegas. And I think everyone's aware of that. I don't think anybody expects to start looking at LSU football in the spring, reading your practice report wherever you do that, or listening to us talk, or go into Twitter, or seeing the videos and all that kind of stuff, and feel like you understand that times they are a-changing. But we all knew entering the spring as talking heads, like, times do have to change, and that's the chorus they're singing over there as well. I'm curious to hear some of what Garrett Nussmeier has to say. I'm curious to hear some of what Will Campbell has to say. I'm curious to see if we get a chance to talk to Joe Sloan later on in the spring. There's some player availability. There's some coach availability, not quite as much as the ramp up in fall camp, but this is just a little bit more laid back time of year. We know that. So I'm curious to hear about it, while I understand that I'm probably not going to see very much of it, if any, until we get to LA. But I will say this in summation of our talk about the running game. Like, I feel okay about it. The offensive line's got to get better at run blocking against elite opponents, but there's every reason to believe that Will Campbell and Garrett Dellinger and DJ Chester and Emory Jones, and who am I missing on the right side? Transfer Miles Frazier.
Frazier,
It was coming. It was coming. Miles Frazier, and then Caleb Jackson and Josh Williams and Caden Durham can handle this. They can be a potent rushing attack. It looks different than 2023, but I think they can handle this, and they're taking their first strides here on this during this spring football period. Our Friday show is brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp, and it's a Lenten Friday. If you observe and are trying to stay away from meat, no better spot to get to than Cork's. You can find them on Government Street between Jefferson and Foster. You can find them online, corksfishandshrimp.com. Fantastic jumbo Gulf fried shrimp, awesome crispy fried catfish, crispy shoestring fries as well, honey butter biscuits. It's really, really good stuff over there at Corks. Get on by, go through the drive-thru, or that renovated dining area, also a great option to get yourself some Corks. Preston Guy continuing the football discussion when we come back on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com. Love talking to my guy, Mitchell Fisher. He knows so much about all these things that I know nothing about. I don't know anything about installing surround sound for your home entertainment system. I don't know how to mount a TV. I'm not very handy at all. I don't know about all the intricacies in terms of a security system at the home, but he does. And he came out to our house, and he's got us all set up. I can look at cameras on the front and back of my house 24 hours a day. They've got full playback modes. Every time there's some sort of movement, whether it's a person or some sort of animal in the backyard, I get notified by it. And it's been an awesome experience for us over the last couple of weeks since we moved. You can have that same situation at your home if you give the guys at Audio Video Security Solutions a call. It's 225-439-7920, 439-7920. It's Audio Video Security Solutions. You can find them at avssla.com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Sandegriff joined me and Jimmy Odd for the Monday edition of Live at Lunch. We are at Walk-Ons in Brewley. We recap the final regular season of the college basketball regular season, and we set up championship week. Plus LSU baseball. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. Monday, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Y'all be dry and safe out there in South Louisiana. Weather rolling through, cold front coming in. Going to be a cool spring weekend here in South Louisiana. LSU baseball on the diamond, LSU basketball on the hardwood, and LSU football underway with spring practice. Preston Guy's here to talk about it. He's, of course, from TigerBait.com and with us every single Friday. Preston, how are you?
I'm doing a lot better. We got to see some practice, at least be in practice this week. So doing good, and plenty of very talented players will be on LSU's campus this weekend. So we'll have a good bit to talk about there, too.
No question about it. You obviously went out to practice this week. Where did your eyes go first?
Well, I didn't make it out there myself. We sent Mike this week, but I will be out there a few times throughout fall camp. So we like to split those duties up. But I know I watched all the film, and immediately my eyes were glued to the pursuit angles. I mean, right off the bat, they opened with them, and it's a bit of a sore spot from last year just because of how many missed tackles. I noticed that. I noticed wrap-up drills, even though they weren't doing tackling. They were focusing on wrapping up, dummies. Footwork was another thing I noticed. A lot of Blake Baker working with linebackers on footwork. Corey Raymond working with the DBs on footwork. It seems to me like there's a much higher emphasis on just the base fundamentals of playing defensive football than there were before. Other than that, of course, eyes go to a couple new quarterbacks in town. Both A.J. Swan and Colin Hurley are they're physically there. They're fit. Very, they do not need weight to gain. Ricky Collins put on weight, although he could probably go for a little bit of a weight room off season still. He came in pretty thin, but he's definitely looking more the part of an SEC quarterback now. And, of course, Nussmeier looks as comfortable and as talented as you could ask. So those are kind of where my eyes always go to.
Bigger spring for the offense, trying to replace the Heisman winner and a couple first-round receivers, or for the defense, trying to overhaul just about everything?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say defense because there's a lot of room to improve upon for the defense.
Yeah.
I think you could make an argument LSU's second-string offense was probably better than the defense was last year. So the fact of the matter is, if the defense improves by, say, 20%, you're still in a lot of trouble this year. That defense doesn't need to get, it doesn't need to improve a good bit. It needs to improve an astronomical amount for this team to have anything near making a 12-team playoff.
There's no question about that. So what is important for the defense early on in spring? We got a long way to go before Lincoln Riley starts calling plays against them. So where does it start?
Well, first off, for the coaches, they're going to have to do a lot of talent evaluation. None of these coaches have coached any of these players before. So they're going to have to see, who the guys are. Sometimes there's obvious picks. Harold Perkins is probably going to be a guy you see in the field. I started taking some shots at who I thought the starting DBs were going to be, which, by the way, there's like 21 defensive backs on this team. So there's a lot of them. But I could go a ton of different starting combinations for your defensive backfield. Corey Raymond's got a lot of work to do back there.
No question about it. As you start to look at the starters, I mean, what do you think? Who do you think is the leader in the clubhouse as far as cornerback goes?
You got to start with Sage Ryan. I mean, I know a lot of fans aren't nuts over what he's been able to do over the years, but he's a veteran guy, and toward the stretch, he was your best player. And then Zy Alexander, assuming he can bounce back from injury, he's probably going to be your other look at cornerback. But I mean, there's guys like Ashton Stamps. I wouldn't be surprised if they push for a starting spot. Does Taviano stick with safety? Does he slide down the corner? And obviously, I think he's a guy who has a ton of talent.
Yeah, stop there. What does his skill set look like to you, and where is he best used?
I think personally a free safety, but I think he's kind of one of those guys where if you can get him on the field as a nickel, but not as a safety, then get him out there. You know what I mean? Like I think that he's one of those guys where you just got to get him on the field.
Yeah, they did last year, and I think that'll be the case again this coming year. Brian Kelly had a lot to say about the running game this week. Your thoughts on that as we get kicked off in spring?
Well, it starts with finding people to actually run that football, which you only got 2 on scholarship. I believe your third-string running back is Malachi Lane, who I saw out there running with Ricky Collins and the threes out there, which, by the way, there was a little nod. I did notice they rotated. Ricky Collins was the second quarterback taking reps in the drills, but he ran with the threes when they did against air scrimmage. I do believe that'll be a battle worth watching. But yeah, no, they got to get the running game going. I wonder how they're going to do it with only 2 running backs in spring. They're going to have to install the system because they're going to have to do new things running the ball. But you'd only have 2 running backs, and I assume you don't want to have them doing 35 carries in the spring game or something nuts like that. So until reinforcements arrive with Caden Durham, who I think we all believe is a more than capable, talented player, he'll be here in the fall, and possibly a transfer portal back, it'll be tough, Hunt.
Preston Guy, TigerBait.com, our guest each and every Friday here talking a little LSU football. Where's your confidence level in this offensive line in terms of run blocking?
Very high. I'd say very high. The only thing that would make me feel more confident in the running game is if these bookend tackles were interior guys instead. But, I mean, don't get me wrong. You'd much rather have a pair of great offensive tackles than offensive guards. But if those maulers were the guys inside, I'd feel a lot better. And I'll say this. If you had an established center, it looks like DJ Chester will probably be a guy as a redshirt freshman taking over that role. I would feel a bunch better. But I think LSU genuinely is going to have probably the best offensive line in the SEC, if not pretty close to it.
Let's talk about those recruits you were talking about a little bit earlier. It's a big weekend for LSU on campus. Seems like the staff has done a marvelous job starting this 2025 class and then beyond. How big is this weekend?
It's huge. They're bringing in their big 3 guys who are already committed. There's 3 5-stars for 2025. That's Bryce Underwood, DeCorian Moore, and Harlem Berry. So, that trio of guys, everybody knows they're the number 1 players in the country at their position. And if those 3 walk up to you and say, hey, join what we're doing, that's going to hold a lot of gravity. And they have 3 other 5-stars, which I think gives them like a third of the guys who have earned a 5-star ranking in 2025, by the way, on campus this weekend. So guys like DJ Pickett, 5-star corner is what LSU's recruiting him at, but he could play a lot of defensive back positions out of Florida. He's a guy who I think LSU's knocking on the door of bringing in. So you have a chance to bring in, the number 1 corner for 2025 alongside with the number 1 receiver, number 1 running back, number 1 quarterback, guys like, there's just a bunch of star-studded players are going to be on campus this weekend. If y'all want to see the entire list, a little plug real quick, we do have it on TigerBait.com listed out there for you. Guys like Jamie French, tons of very talented players. This is going to be a big weekend.
How big is the star-studded nature of the beginning of this class for filling in the rest of it?
Yeah, I've talked to a bunch of recruits about that. I've asked that question directly many, many times. Guys like James Simon, they're aware of what LSU is building with this class. And, I also think that they're also aware of the timing of this class LSU building and Saban's retirement, because a lot, just the way it works is a lot of the guys LSU's in on, Nick Saban has also been in on. So I think that there's a real perception, an upward perception of LSU with these recruits, and it matters to them. They know. And outside of the only downside of it would be is can I compete with these guys? Are these guys going to take play time from me? And typically, none of these guys are going to admit that, but the thought is there. But, it's not like LSU's recruiting another quarterback to come in and compete with Bryce Underwood or anything like that. For the most part, you're going for guys. These top-notch guys know they're going to find their spot.
Preston, we appreciate some time. Have a great weekend.
All right, Hunt, take it easy.
He's Preston Guy, TigerBait.com for all your LSU football needs. You can find him on TigerBait.com as well as on their YouTube channel. We appreciate him for checking us out every single Friday. Our Friday show is brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. We'll come back and chat with Chris Demouy, LSU and Xavier from the box this weekend. Demouy's all over it. He's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Platinum Window Tint, PlatinumWindowTintLLC.com. Been telling you all week about the benefits of tinting your windows, whether it's your car or your home or your business. But they do other things over at Platinum Window Tint, including their ceramic coating, which is just a liquid that is put on over the paint of your vehicle that creates a hydrophobic coat that resists water and other harsh road contaminants. It's also scratch resistant. It creates kind of a diamond-like hardness to resist some of those minor scratches. It's stain-proof, whether it's harsh water, tree sap, bird droppings, other environmental factors, and it also makes your car look better. There's a little bit of a gloss enhancement on your vehicle as well. So if you want your vehicle to look a little bit better, shine a little bit more, and be protected from all the harsh elements down here in South Louisiana, ceramic coating may be an awesome, awesome thing for you and your vehicle. You can check out all the services as well as request that quote right at PlatinumWindowTintLLC.com. That's PlatinumWindowTintLLC.com.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the JimsFirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the JimsFirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Friday's AFR, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar. Getting you ready for another weekend at the box as LSU welcomes Xavier and the basketball Tigers wrap up the regular season with Mizzou. Join us, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Moving right along on a Friday. Hope that work week is either in the rearview mirror or very, very close to it. We'll get you to the finish line here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. I'll be out at Rouse's coming up from 3 to 5 this afternoon. Back at the Burbank and Lee location. Always love our time there. So if you're looking to do some of your weekend grocery shopping, come on by Rouse's, Burbank, and Lee, and I may have some stuff for you, which should be a lot of fun this afternoon. Chris Demouy's with us every single Friday, former Tiger left-hander. LSU and Xavier, 3-game set at the box this weekend. Demouy, how are you?
Doing good, buddy. How are you doing?
Doing quite well. LSU was awesome over the weekend in Houston. What was your favorite part?
I think this feels like so long ago, right? I think the Texas game because, going to go up against LeBaron Johnson and to me, their approach and watching their approach against one of the best pitchers in the country was just phenomenal. You drive that guy's pitch count up, you foul off balls, you take close pitches, you make him work hard, and he struggled. You get him out the game, and just to beat a team like that, which was a big step up in competition to me, I think that was a great way to start off the weekend and kind of set the tone. And some of those other games, I'll be honest, kind of ran together for me, but I think I just put you in a good place for the weekend, and you saw what happened. They were able to win the tournament and just keep the momentum going this year.
I thought the starting pitching was phenomenal all week in Houston. Cade Anderson, and then obviously into the three guys on the weekend with Holman and
Right.
and Jump and Hurd. How do you feel about those three guys who are a week away from conference play?
Good. I remember last week you asked me who I thought would be the rotation in a couple months, and I think that's who I said. I think Holman, there's no reason to doubt him right now. He's got a 0 ERA. Gage Jump continues. They continue to stretch him out. I think I've heard Jay Johnson say maybe up to 90 pitches pretty soon.
Yeah.
Maybe this outing. And then Hurd looked better to me. I didn't get to watch his whole outing, but I think with him, it's just fastball command. His breaking ball looked better. His fastball looked good down in the zone. I think when he pushes it down in the zone, he's really good. It seems like, from what I can tell, he's not like Ty Floyd. We saw Ty Floyd, whose fastball played amazing up in the zone last year. He just got swing after miss up in the zone. But Floyd really Hurd, to me, needs to push the fastball down in the zone to be effective, and that way his slider and curveball play a little bit more to me. And I think he's just moving him to Sunday to me, or the third day, was great. I think it takes some pressure off of him, lets him relax, lets him get used to to the weekend, and he doesn't have to be, Mr. Guy on Friday night, and he's an amazing option to have if he's going to stay in that Sunday role. That's fine with me. So,
Do you put a lot of stock in the fact that it goes right, left, right in that rotation? I hear that a lot. I don't tend to care day by day as long as it's not three guys that are exact clones of each other. But is there a benefit to having Jump between the two right-handers?
I agree with you. I don't necessarily think so. I think there's one thing we've seen Jay do, and I think this makes a lot of sense, is it's right, left, right, or left, right, left out of the bullpen typically. Now we have so many lefties this year, it kind of gets difficult at the end of the weekend. But I like that, to where if you see Holman, he starts the game, then you may see a Ackenhausen or a Herring or a Lower come in right after him, which is a completely different look than to close the game out. You'll see a Guidry or Ulloa, and then vice versa when Jump starts. So I think that makes more of a difference to the opposing team in their lineup, as opposed to the weekend starter, like you said.
What do you think about the catcher rotation to this point?
Makes sense to me. I think all three guys are still getting a chance. I think they've proven themselves they all three offer such different things, right? Neal's swinging the bat very good. Milazzo's a defensive guy, and Travinsky's a combination of both. I don't have a problem with it. It's and I wouldn't, and they're all comfortable DHing, it seems like, too. And you can bring in Milazzo for late inning situations when he doesn't start. Obviously, I don't know how they feel about it, but to me, it feels fine to me. I think we saw some of that last year. Obviously, then Neal got hurt, but all three of those guys deserve a chance in certain situations. And the other thing, too, don't discount the fact that maybe certain guys catch when certain starters are on the mound.
Yeah.
I've been in that role before, and you may have some slight preferences. And, with some transfers, some guys may be bonded more with others, like a Jump or a Holman. So don't discount that fact either.
Think Stephen Milam's earned the right to be in there every day?
No doubt. I mean, I don't I don't see – I tell you what, I'll admit it on the radio and to your audience, I was wrong on him, completely wrong. Because in the fall when I saw him, I thought no shot this year. I thought
he had a bad fall.
Yeah, I thought he was a redshirt guy, and I really like him. I just like the way he takes at bats, very mature approach. He seems to barrel up balls, and he's going to be one of those guys that I think the fans are going to rally around because he's going to do a lot of things right, and he looks like just a straight-up grinder. LSU fans love grinders, right? He's undersized, which probably adds to the story, but I see no reason why you take him out. And he's versatile, too. He can play multiple positions on the infield. So I'll admit it, I was a little wrong on him, but I'm a big fan.
How big was Wednesday, the way that happened, to come back from 2 down with 2 outs for the guys moving forward, to have that happen early in the season?
Yeah, so I kind of went back and watched the highlights. I was at a company meeting all week out of town, so I didn't get a chance to watch that live. But I think it's huge. Now, look, everybody's going to say, oh, it's Southeastern, in-state team, and it's honest now. In-state teams play way better when they play LSU, right? Pitchers are better, hitters are better, they take better swings. You were in Hammond, which I'm sure the atmosphere was nuts. And but they just came off the weekend of beating Fullerton and East Carolina. And East Carolina is a top 15 team, so they were riding high after the previous weekend. But that's one thing this team has shown is they have grit at the end of the game. And one thing Coach Burtman said, and I think Jay Johnson tweeted it out, is Coach Burtman always said, you can't run the clock out in baseball. You got to get all 27 outs, and it doesn't matter. And you see early on that this team believes until the final out and the final strike, for that matter, scoring the runs with 2 outs. So I think it was huge. It just continues to build the young guys' confidence, and the old guys know what it takes. And a loss in the midweek is not the end of the world. But I think that just shows a lot of the character of this team moving forward to win in that situation in the ninth like that.
I think I asked you this last week, but now it's even more relevant because of what Cade Anderson did on the weekend, striking out 12 in 5 innings of work. What do you see as his role moving forward?
I think, moving forward, I would ask what's your time frame, but I had a feeling you were going to ask this today after his performance. And look, I was talking to my cousin just a second ago who saw him front and center at Catholic, and I got to see him a couple times at Catholic because they would play St. Paul's, and he was dominant in high school. Then he had Tommy John. But I think you just keep him where he is for now. And look, if you're 2 or 3 weeks into the SEC slate and somebody in that starting rotation is faltering, then you look to move him in. But I just don't. He's so good in the midweek right now. I just don't know why you would maybe push him. But I know Jay is one to maybe put freshmen at the front when maybe regular fans and even people like myself may not think they're ready. But I think for now, until somebody in that weekend rotation really kind of falls off, I think you're going to see him in the midweek. And I wouldn't be surprised once you move into conference play if you see his outing shorten during the midweek to where he can give you valuable innings on the weekend. He doesn't need to go 7 or 8 against Northwestern or North Dakota, maybe, whoever it is down the road, Louisiana Tech or Grambling, whoever it may be. He can go 4 or 5, get his work in, and then he can give you 3 on the weekend. So I think that's where he stays for now.
So you had 8 games in 10 days to start the first 2 weeks, and then you had the big trip to Houston that you were really excited for. Now you just got Xavier on a 3-game weekend, and Mississippi State's right there on the back of it. How difficult is focus this week?
I don't think it'll be a lot. I don't think it'll be tough at all. I mean, Xavier's a good team, right? Lower came from Xavier, who's at LSU now. They went in there and almost won a regional last year at Vanderbilt. And I looked at their schedule. I would encourage people to go look at their schedule. Their record is, I think, 7-6 maybe, but I mean, they challenge themselves. They play, they're in Cincinnati, so they're going to come down south and play who's who. And they're a good team. So I don't think it should be State's on the horizon, but what's the point if you look ahead to State and you drop 2 or 3 this week and you drop 1 in the midweek, and then there was no point in looking ahead to State. So I think the way Jay Johnson preaches it, trust the process, focus on one game at a time. I just think, you just got to do something like that. Now, maybe if they were playing a lesser opponent than a Xavier, but I think, you have to be on your toes. There's no reason why Xavier doesn't think they can't come in here and win 2 out of 3. So I don't think focus will be an issue for these guys.
you feel significantly different about this team than you did before opening day, or they're kind of on schedule for you?
That's a great question. I was talking to some buddies about that just now. So we were kind of going back and forth on the hitting aspect, actually. I feel the same as I do about the pitching, actually. Cade Anderson was a little bit of surprise in terms of kind of the role he's taken at the leading the midweek charge. Uloa has been a surprise to me on the back end of the bullpen. Everybody else has been pretty much what I expected. The hitting has been better than I thought. Now they can do it in bunches, but then you see times where they're only going to score 1 run through 7 innings, so it kind of comes in waves. And I think the other thing, Tommy White hasn't even hit full stride yet.
Nope.
He didn't. People need to remember he didn't touch a bat in the fall. Period. No ABs. So he's still getting his timing right. I think people are pitching him differently this year. I've seen people bust him in hard, and I'm not sure if he's adjusted to that yet. Some of that may be depending on count and what he's trying to do, but I think Brady Neal has been a nice addition. Pearson still hasn't got up and going. He's kind of sputtering at times, and we know what he can do. It usually takes him a while to get going, but you see Milam, you see Braswell. It's just different guys contributing at different times, and I think that's what this team's going to be. They're going to hit probably 80 home runs as a team. They're not coming close to 144, so I think people just need to readjust what this team's going to be from an offensive standpoint, and I think it's just going to be a combination of efforts every weekend, and there may be times where they just don't score a ton, but there may be times where, they roll out and beat somebody 15-3 in an SEC game because everybody's clicking. So they're still what I thought they were going to be, but I think their ceiling is higher than I thought.
He is Chris Demouy, Tiger national champion, joining us every single Friday. Have a great weekend. We'll preview LSU and Mississippi State next week.
Sounds good. All right, brother. Thank you.
He is Chris Demouy talking some Tiger baseball here on our Friday shows brought to you by Corks. One thing that he did mention there, Tommy White has not gotten going. His statistics are not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but we know what he can be, and you're just a couple of pitches away, I think, with him from a 4 home run weekend. That's just kind of the way it feels like, because LSU has done a great job of getting guys on base for him. Great. They have been on base for him for 3 weeks, and he's hit a lot of sliced fly balls, and he's gotten some hits, and he's had some RBIs. Big home run in Minute Maid last week against I think it was ULL that he hit the big home run against. Maybe it was Texas. It was against Texas he hit the home run. But he's not like just white hot. Well, that's a bad pun on accident. You never know when that's going to happen. But he hasn't been just as electric as he can be. That's coming eventually. We know it. There's too long a track record in college baseball, and he just hadn't quite gotten there. That's good news for LSU because we know it is inevitably coming. We'll take one more time out this hour. We'll come back, and I'll let you know where LSU stands in the SEC, and is there a chance they could host a home game in the NIT? That's next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Up on Monday's OTB, we recap a massive weekend of sports. Women's SEC tournament, men basketball closing out the regular season, LSU baseball, LSU gym, and Spreadline. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Closing up hour number one here on this Friday, LSU and Missouri from the PMAC tomorrow at 7:30. I'll get you ready for that at the top of hour number two, as well as LSU and Xavier from the box. Weather's just hit and miss this afternoon here in Baton Rouge. If we hear anything about LSU and Xavier, we'll let you know. But as of right now, the game is on as scheduled, and I'll preview that one coming up at 2:15. Of course, all of our breakdowns this year on the baseball squad brought to you by Pluckers. But this is basketball here as we close out hour number one. And for those that haven't been following along quite as closely or don't listen every day, I have laid out that the NIT has changed its rules as far as automatic bids go. Used to be if you won your conference in the regular season and did not win your conference tournament, you were in. That's not the case anymore because the NIT decided, you know what? We'd really rather have LSU, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Oregon, as opposed to somebody from the Missouri Valley that no one's ever heard of. They just decided that was a better deal. So what they've done is they've taken the Power Six, that's, of course, the SEC, the ACC, Big 12, Big 10, Pac-10, and Big East, Pac-12, as it were, Big East for the next 20 minutes. And the top two teams in the net from all six of those leagues that do not qualify for the NCAA tournament are in as hosts. So what LSU is trying to do is get in the top two of the SEC that don't qualify for the NCAA tournament. Well, we know that Tennessee's in. We know that Alabama is in. We know South Carolina is in. We know that Florida is in. We know Kentucky is in. We know Auburn is in. That is the top six in the SEC. Those teams can lose on Saturday, lose their first game in Nashville. They're going to the NCAA tournament, no question. There are three teams that are kind of on the bubble, and really two of them are in big trouble. Mississippi State is on the bubble. Joe Lunardi's got them in as last four buys, so not even going to Dayton. So Mississippi State, we assume, will get into the NCAA tournament. Jerry Palm's got them as a 10. They're in. So the two teams that are out and not even listed on the next four in by Jerry Palm and Joe Lunardi are Texas A&M and Ole Miss, both of which have better net scores than LSU. A&M is 49th. Ole Miss is 79th. LSU is 88th in the net. If A&M gets into the field, then LSU and Ole Miss elevate and they're in. That seems like a long shot. A&M's got a game against Ole Miss on the road. They got to go to net. They're probably not getting in. So the path to LSU from an A&M perspective with A&M getting into the field is unlikely. So what's the other way to get in and get a host? Ole Miss has got to fall behind LSU. Ole Miss is 9 spots ahead of LSU in the net. Ole Miss is 79th. LSU is 88th. LSU is not going to get a bump for beating Missouri in the PMAC. Don't get much credit for making sure a team goes 0-18 in the league. So you really need Ole Miss to fall, and you can do some damage when you get to Nashville. If Ole Miss loses a home game to Texas A&M, they will fall a few spots, maybe 3, maybe 5, I'm not sure. But they will fall. The problem is, like, everyone else is going to lose, including LSU, at some point as well. So I'm talking myself all the way around this. What you're going to need to have happen is Ole Miss loses to A&M. LSU beats Missouri. That's step one on Saturday. And then you go to the SEC tournament. You need Ole Miss to lose right away and hope that they fall into the mid-80s, 85, 86. Right now, LSU's at 88. LSU, in my opinion, probably needs to win 2 games in Nashville to jump Ole Miss before they inevitably lose. Of course, this conversation is completely moot. If LSU doesn't lose again, they'll be in the NCAA tournament. You already know that. I'm not betting on that. But LSU has assured itself that LSU will not play on Wednesday. Wednesday, you've got 14 versus 11. That'll be Missouri against somebody. And you've got 13 versus 12. That'll be Vanderbilt against somebody. The 3 teams vying for those 2 spots or a bye are Arkansas, Georgia, and Ole Miss. LSU is not going to play on Wednesday. They will play on Thursday. So it's unlikely, in my opinion, that LSU gets an automatic host. And it's also unlikely that LSU is one of the top 4 teams in the net left out of the NCAA tournament. So right now, as it stands, I think LSU is traveling for the first round of the NIT, assuming they make it. You lose to Missouri and lose your first one in Nashville, then you may not make it, period. But that's kind of the way it sits. And I feel like, for some reason, I feel compelled to add this caveat every single time I talk about the NIT. I know the NIT is not the goal. And I also would not sit here and try to pump smoke and tell you that playing in the NIT is some huge boon for the program. I could see in Will Wade's first year with Tremont Waters and with Skylar Mays and with some of those guys that were going to be on the next team, maybe that was a big deal. I don't know who's going to be on the team next year. So I can't sit here in good faith and tell you it's some sort of big deal to play tournament basketball. But I think it would be nice for those guys, after working hard and winning some games and having a 6, 7, 8 game jump in league wins, to play some more basketball. I think they would enjoy doing that. And if they got to play it in the PMAC, that'd be even better for them. So I think it's unlikely. You need Ole Miss to lose a couple in a row and LSU probably to win 3 in a row and get to Saturday. And I think that would do it. But again, I think that's probably unlikely. We'll see as the dust settles on conference tournaments coming up next week. All right. A lot to get to in hour number 2. Our Friday shows are brought to you by Corks. When we come back after SportsCenter, I'll break down the Missouri Tigers. Just going to spoil a little bit. They're not very good, but we'll talk about them. And we'll talk about the Xavier Musketeers and a little Saints news with Tyronn Mathieu signing an extension. That's all to come after SportsCenter. Come back with us on a Friday. It is the Hunt Palmer Show.
This is SportsCenter.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the sound, phones down. No more NHL trades can be made. There it is. The NHL trade deadline is officially past 3 p.m. Eastern time, which is right now. Here are some of the notable moves made leading up to the deadline. Sabres trade captain Kyle Okposo to the Florida Panthers. The Carolina Hurricanes land center Evgeny Kuznetsov from the Washington Capitals. The Boston Bruins land Pat Maroon for the Minnesota Wild. Maroon, by the way, has won 3 straight Stanley Cups. The Rangers acquire defenseman Chad Ruhwedel from the Penguins. They also get forward Nick Pettin from the Minnesota Wild. From the NFL, soon-to-be-released quarterback Russell Wilson visiting with the Pittsburgh Steelers today. He had a brief stop-in with the Giants on his way to Pittsburgh. This according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. League sources, by the way, called the Giants session an exploratory meeting. The Patriots and tight end Hunter Henry agreeing on a 3-year contract extension. The case could easily be made that Henry was the Patriots' best offensive weapon last year. Yikes! At the second round of the Arnold Palmer Invitational from Bay Hill, Shane Lowry sitting at 7 under par with a one-shot lead.
Hey, it's your resident Super Bowl champ, Chris Candy, coming up Monday with the legal tampering window set to open. I'll tell you which free agents you should be paying attention to. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something quite extraordinary?
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show. The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Final hour of the week here on the Hunt Palmer Show. Friday is brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. It's, of course, a Lenten Friday. If you're looking for a dinner option tonight, get on by Cork's. Whether you got a normal-sized family and you can just order for everyone, or you got like a Hester-sized family, they got the big haul over at Cork's that you can pick up and head home and eat delicious crispy fried catfish, awesome Gulf shrimp, and those crispy shoestring fries. Plus, they got baked potatoes topped with crawfish etouffee. You can get the crawfish etouffee with catfish on top as well. A lot of great options over there at Cork's, and they bring you our Friday shows each and every week. LSU's regular season from a basketball perspective will come to an end Saturday night inside the PMAC. It'll be a 7:30 tip-off, late night once again. And Missouri comes in a spot you just don't see. Missouri's 0-17 in the league. That just doesn't happen. We've seen some bad LSU basketball teams. Last year's LSU basketball team was bad. The last basketball team that Johnny Jones coached at LSU was bad. Both found a way to win multiple SEC games. Missouri has not found a way to win one. Missouri's last win was against Central Arkansas on December the 30th. For a little perspective, I looked back on some things that happened on December 30th that might have been noteworthy you may have paid attention to. Georgia beat Florida State 63-3 in the Orange Bowl on December the 30th. That's how long it's been since Missouri won a basketball game. And I looked and I was expecting, because I know that Missouri has lost, and I've certainly kept up with the league, but I could not go back and recite whether that was a close game or whether that was a blowout against Georgia, against A&M. How did it look against Florida? I don't remember game by game what Missouri has been doing. And honestly, it has not been as lopsided as I thought it would be. They've lost 7 SEC games by 10+, only 2 by 20+. Conversely, LSU lost 3 games by 20+ last year in league play, and LSU got beat by 10 12 times last year in SEC play. Only 7 for Missouri to this point. They've been remotely competitive in a lot of games and just quite simply have not found any way to get a W. That is mentally very difficult to get over. I promise Missouri is not working significantly less hard than UConn is. They're all going to class. They're all going to film study. They're all going to practice. They're all lifting weights. They're all doing conditioning. They're all getting treatment. And there's just no positive reinforcement to be had over a 2-month span. That's really hard emotionally. But they continue to fight. And they've been fairly competitive in some games here lately. I expected, again, as I go through the statistics, they're 0-17, this is going to look awful. And I kept looking for the thing they are so bad at. If you've lost every game, you're going to be, in my opinion, like in my guess, you're going to be 324th in points per game. You're going to be 331 in turnovers. You're going to have something that just jumps off the page that you're just terrible at that you can't overcome. That is not the case offensively for Missouri. Now, they're not good at anything either, and that's the problem. But they don't have some just awful weakness. They're just, across the board, a little below average. I know numbers don't play great on radio, but you'll get the gist of this, and I won't have to go through it. Possessions per game, 191st. Keep in mind, that's not catastrophic. There are 360 teams in D1. If you're in the top 40, you're elite. If you're in the bottom 40, you're awful. And everybody else is kind of lumped in there. If you're in the hundreds, that's just very average. 187th in offensive efficiency, 183rd in points per game, 196 in shooting percentage. Free throws attempted per game, 209. Turnovers, 143rd. Assists to turnover, 189. Assists per possession, 231. That's not very good, but offensive rebounding, 277, not great. But none of it is just atrocious. They're just not good at anything. Do they shoot a ton of free throws? No. Do they make a ton of shots? No. Do they turn it over a ton? No. Do they assist a ton? No. It's just a bunch of on offense. And that kind of surprised me. I expected to see something that jumped out. But then again, for everybody else that we previewed in the SEC, even the teams that aren't having a great year, A&M can't shoot a lick, but they rebound like crazy. Arkansas has some real struggles at times on offense, but they get to the free throw line a ton. Same thing can be said for Georgia. Bama doesn't shoot a lot of free throws, but they make a ton of threes. Everybody's got something they can kind of rely on offensively, and I just don't see it for Missouri across the board. Now, the defense, some of the numbers do jump. And that's where LSU is going to have to attack Missouri. They're 311th in defensive efficiency. That is very bad. You're 180th in something that's not good, but it's right around average. 311 in defensive efficiency, that's a problem. Opponent's points per game, 282nd in the country, that's a problem. Defensive rebounding, 355th in the country, that's a problem. And it's probably the biggest problem. They only rebound 66% of opponents' misses. If you're LSU, go to the offensive glass. Go, go, go. Now, Missouri will get some steals. They're 56th in steals. That's a very good number. That tells me they're aggressive. That tells me they're in passing lanes. They're reaching. But they're giving up a lot of points. Now, this is where I just mentioned that steals number. This is where the rubber meets the road for LSU in this game. I sincerely believe this. In terms of opponents' turnovers per possession, Missouri is 80th, which compared to the rest of these metrics is very strong. It's got to be the strength of the team. They force their opponents to turn the ball over a little bit. They're only behind, they're just behind Tennessee in turnovers forced per possession, and they're in front of Auburn. And those are maybe the top two teams in the league. And Missouri's right there in terms of forcing turnovers with those. And then you match that with the fact that LSU is 269th in the country in offensive turnovers committed. And then all of a sudden you go, if Missouri's going to hang around and find a way to get their first SEC win, LSU's going to turn the ball over 19 times. And Missouri's going to turn 5 of those into run-out dunks and 2 more into transition threes. LSU's bugaboo has been turnovers. Missouri's only strength, statistically, is that they can force some turnovers. You have got to take care of the basketball. It starts with Trey Hannibal. It leaks over to Jordan Wright. And honestly, Will Baker has turned the ball over a little bit too much in some of the games he's played where he's been neutralized. Do not turn the basketball over against Missouri. And if you do, make sure it's a dead ball turnover. Get a charging call. Throw a quick pass out of bounds. We'll live. Do not get your pocket picked out at the three-point line. Do not allow them to shoot a passing lane and get a pick six. That is the only chance Missouri has to win this game. Now, you look at Missouri in terms of their personnel. Nick Honor's going to run the point for him. He's a little fluffy for a point guard, and that's coming from a fluffy guy myself here. But usually a college point guard could use another cheeseburger. Nick Honor, kind of a bigger guy, but he's a good basketball player. I actually kind of like watching him play. But he's 5'10", 200. That's not exactly the build you look at for a collegiate point guard. But the guy that's doing the scoring for them is Sean East III. He's got 20-plus in each of the last 6 games. Sean East in SEC play is averaging 18 points per game. Get a hand in his face. Don't let him get hot and go for 31. There's no need for that. This is one of those games where, not because LSU is great, not because LSU's been awesome, not because LSU is playing great basketball. LSU's been pretty good. But for Missouri to win a basketball game, there's going to generally need to be some sort of statistical outlier because they haven't done it in 2.5 months. So it comes down to, don't let East go for 31, which he can. He's a left-hander, shoots the three okay, gets to the rim, and don't turn it over 21 times. If you do that, you'll get the same result everybody else literally in the Southeastern Conference has gotten this year, and that's a win over Missouri. Missouri is a perfect poster child for modern college basketball. Dennis Gates shows up. He brings in all transfers. They make the tournament. Those transfers leave. He goes and gets more. They stink. And this team is not good. 0-17 is not good. And this is something we talked about earlier this week. That likely this game on Saturday night will kind of frame, more so than any other game LSU has played, how this season is perceived pre-SEC tournament. Because the hay is in the barn with those 8 wins. You've already got the Kentucky win. You've already got the South Carolina win. You let one get away against Florida. Let one get away against Georgia on the road. Let one get away against A&M, but you went there and won. Like, all that hay is in the barn. And basically, you got a couple of nice wins and a couple of losses that you'd like to have another shot at, but nothing egregious. This is the only polarizing game left. You go to Nashville and you lose to Ole Miss or A&M or Florida or Kentucky. Nobody really bats an eye about that. You go to the NIT and you win a game or two or lose a game or two. Nobody really cares. But if you lose to the team that's 0-17 at home, people are going to go, that's pathetic. That's just the way it works. If this were almost any other team on the schedule, I don't think anyone would bat an eye, but 0-17 is jarring coming in here. LSU needs to take care of business in this game. And if they do and finish 500 in the league and you see how the dice roll up in Nashville, I think everyone will look at this and go, okay, that was pretty good. Let's get better for next year. Show me another jump. I've been pretty well in sync with this basketball team all SEC play long. And I feel like I've got a pretty good read on this game. I think Missouri is going to be right in this thing with 4 minutes to go. But I think LSU at home, with better players, a better team, and Missouri understanding how to lose games, that LSU will win this thing by 2 or 3 points. I think it will be close. I would love it if LSU could put me in a rocking chair on Saturday night for the second half and win this thing by 23. But that's only happened twice to Missouri all conference play long, and they haven't even gotten blown out that often. They just seem to always lose by 7, always lose by 4. I think they lose by 2 or 3 on Saturday night. I'll take the Tigers to get to 500 in league play, and then we see what awaits LSU on Thursday in Nashville. All right, we'll shift gears over to baseball. Xavier comes in. Interesting nugget on their starting pitcher tonight. I'll tell you about it coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
ESPN Bet is now live in Louisiana as the official sportsbook of ESPN. ESPN Bet's the only place to find daily exclusives and offers with your favorite ESPN personalities and their shows. Sign up today. New users get $100 in bonus bets for making any sportsbook bet. It could not be easier. You go into the Bet app, you put your money in, you make one bet, $100 is automatically credited to your account. You can find all your favorite markets, bets, in-game wagers, cross-sport parlays, teasers, all the props that you can handle. That's ESPN Bet. You can download today. What a play. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. In partnership with the Bears Lake Charles. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
He's here. Anyone want a Coors Light?
Oh, shoot, I forgot to play the song. I got a guy who can fix this.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, party plank, and vinyl siding. But our #1 product is always customer satisfaction.
Sandigrove joined me and Jimmy Ott for the Monday edition of Live at Lunch. We are at Walk-Ons in Bruley. We recap the final regular season of the college basketball regular season, and we set up championship week. Plus LSU baseball. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. Monday, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Shout out to the folks over at Corks, bringing you our Friday shows. Jefferson and Foster, between those two streets on Government. Get on by and see them today. LSU and Xavier in a traditional 3-game set. Had those wraparound weekends and then the games in Houston. This is just a traditional 3-gamer at Alec Box Stadium between LSU and Xavier. Interesting note, I'm going to tell you some of the things I want to see from LSU, but wanted to briefly mention Xavier's starting pitcher that is scheduled to go tonight, and that is right-hander Luke Haskins. Haskins is 6'4", 170 pounds, so I'm guessing that waist size is about 26. But he's a guy that's been at Xavier for a couple of years and was excellent in the regional last year against Vanderbilt. In that game in Nashville against the Commodores, he threw 7 innings of 1-run baseball, only gave up 3 hits and struck out 4. So a really good game in the biggest moment of their season last year against the Commodores. He's been hit a little bit this year. The ERA is very inflated, so this is not some All-American that's coming in, but this guy with some skins on the wall who threw it well against Vanderbilt, and I don't know that he'll be completely intimidated tonight. It's not LeBaron Johnson, but it's a good test, I think, for this LSU lineup in Luke Haskins tonight. You'll see Nolan Hughes tomorrow. He's a left-hander, 6'5", 235 transfer from Fordham. And then Nick Boyle, 6'3", 200-pound right-handed pitcher. This is a Xavier team that was in postseason last year in that Nashville Regional. Justin Lohr, LSU left-hander, was on that team last year. He'll have a lot of buddies that are across the field from him in the opposite dugout, and he had Koki Riley wrote a story about Justin Lohr earlier this week that you can check out over at The Advocate, and that's going to be an interesting one for him. But for LSU, it's about getting things as pulled together as you can before you get into this 30-game gauntlet that is the SEC schedule. I mentioned this with Demouy a little bit earlier on the show in the first hour and said, look, this is a spot where LSU needs to find its focus because it's so easy to get amped up for those 8 games in 10 days to start the season. You had Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then you had Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you had those again 8 games in 9 days, I think it was. So it's a lot, and then you had to look forward to the road trip to Houston, and you go to Rice, and you play in a big league stadium, and that's all fantastic. And you have a week to bond, and you played really well, and that's good. And next week, you're going to the prettiest stadium in college baseball over there at Dudy Noble to start SEC play, and that's really exciting. This is not that exciting. It's another chance to go play baseball. I think on Saturday and Sunday they'll have good crowds. I don't know about tonight with the weather. We'll see how things go. Cooler weekend, should be decent crowds, but it's Xavier, and it's a sandwich effect with the Houston right behind you and Starkville right in front of you. You're going to have to bring some energy, bring some juice if you're LSU baseball. Now, they got a really good coach who's great at doing that, and I think it's a team that, while they don't have a ton of skins on the wall, from an LSU perspective, they seem to have their heads on straight, and they had a big-time win back on Wednesday. But you got to bring your own juice this weekend. The thing for me, for LSU, is getting this starting rotation ready to go for next weekend. And I've said for 2 weeks now, I thought that the starting rotation against Xavier would very likely be the starting rotation against Mississippi State. Now, I could envision a world where Thatcher Hurd walks 6 guys this week and they decide that Cade Anderson's the guy. I find that unlikely. I think they're okay with Cade Anderson going Tuesday against North Dakota State on normal rest. I think they're confident that Thatcher Hurd is going to continue to get better like he did last year. So what do you expect to see from those guys? Well, they've already been stretched out pretty good. Luke Holman against Central Arkansas in the opener the opening weekend threw 87 pitches. Against Northern Illinois the following week, he threw 77. And then last week against Texas, he threw 91. So I could see Luke Holman getting up to 100 pitches today in this weekend. Now, if he gets bumped back to tomorrow due to weather, and they want to start him Friday in Starkville, and that's one day less rest, and they want to cut that 15 pitches shorter, maybe that's the case. But we'll see. I want to see Luke Holman for 100 pitches if he goes tonight. Gage Jump closed out the opener against VMI. That was 11 pitches. Then he started a game the next week against Northern Illinois and threw 52 pitches. And last week against Louisiana Lafayette, he threw 76. I would love if Gage Jump was bumping 90 pitches this week. That would signal to me that he's ready to go in Starkville and extend and give me 5 2/3, 6 innings. Want to see Gage Jump get up towards 90 pitches. And then Thatcher Hurd threw 61 in the opener against VMI. He threw 95 against Stony Brook. He threw 83 against Texas State. He's ready to go. I could see him throwing 95 to 100 pitches in this game. Of course, job number one is to get outs and help LSU win the game this weekend. That is job number one here. But job number two is to try to hit those pitch counts, to hold your effectiveness, to continue to get outs so that you can hit your pitch count in the 5th, 6th, 7th inning, and then you're ready to get into SEC play. I don't want to be pushing a lot of buttons or compromising your ability to win because of health concerns once SEC play starts. You've got a month as a runway to get ready to go. And I think that LSU's got the 3 guys they want on the weekend right now. I think they've all been stretched out to an extent. All of them threw over 75 pitches last week. You can get to 90 or 100 this week, then you're ready to go. It's my least favorite weekend of the baseball year for the same reason that the players have got to bring your own juice. You're, as someone who's following the program and a fan of the program and wants to talk about the program, I'd rather talk about Mississippi State. I'd rather talk about Hunter Hides and Dakota Jordan. I'd rather talk about Durangelo Sainja and Duty Nova Field and all that. We're not there yet. You got 4 more games to play. The Xavier team went up there to an undefeated Louisiana Tech in the midweek and split a midweek series, a 2-game series in the midweek. Tech had not lost, and Xavier beat them. It's a good team. It's not an SEC-level team. I don't know if it's a regional team or not. They got a long way to go to get back to where they were last year, which is the regional final in Nashville against Oregon. They eliminated Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt's field last year. They've got some guys back, some guys not. Justin Lohr certainly not. But it's a good, functional baseball team that you're going to have to go out there and beat. And I could go through the lineup and guys I want to see. I'd really like to see Tommy White just explode, which would be awesome. But it's going to be an interesting weekend to see how LSU responds to it. This is one where if you're making me pick, I'd probably pick LSU to drop a game this weekend. It's a good team, weird spot. But if you can go out there and replicate what you did last week, if LSU plays to the level that it did last week, they'll sweep the series. That was excellent baseball. But you saw they came back 3 days later in Hammond and were tied in knots offensively, which is going to happen at times to this team and really any team. But got to get it done this weekend before we can get ready for SEC play. It's LSU and Xavier. Interesting game times this week, a little bit different than your traditional Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Tonight, it is not a 7 o'clock first pitch for LSU and Xavier. It's a 6:30 first pitch on a Friday. If that changes over the next 35 minutes, we'll let you know. Saturday's game is at 5 o'clock. That's an interesting start time for a Saturday game. But it's Saturday night at 5 o'clock, and then Sunday, they'll get things going at noon over at the box. It's LSU and Xavier. Our breakdowns of baseball all season long are brought to you by Pluckers. Nicholson, just south of campus, which is a great spot to go catch a beer and some wings before LSU plays, or Mall, Louisiana, right there on Bluebonnet, where you can watch LSU baseball. They'll have it on every single game all year long. I've been telling you all week about the new sauce they've got over there at Pluckers. It's Breggie's Creole Crush. Got the spice and the rub. I tasted it back on Tuesday. It's awesome. Got a little bit of heat. I'm not a huge spicy guy, so I'm not going to go nuts on the spicy foods. This is not nuts. It's not fire in the hole over there. It's just got a little bit of heat, a lot of flavor. So get on by Pluckers and go ahead and tell them that the Hunt Palmer Show sent you over there when you get that Breggie's Creole Crush. That is just a hard thing to say. Breggie's Creole Crush at Pluckers for LSU baseball this weekend. All right, Saints had some news about a former LSU Tiger. We'll get into that coming up next.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Love talking to David. I love looking at the website at OneBathAndClosets.com because I tell you about them customizing things to your specifications, whether it's a closet or a bathroom, all the time. I can't promise you what that's going to look like because it's customized to you, but I can promise you that it's going to look gorgeous. And you can see some of those pictures on their website at OneBathAndClosets.com, whether it's on the bathroom side or on the closet side. And you can go ahead and read the testimonials from their satisfied clients as well. They're going to do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. Financing options are available if you want to do a full-scale bathroom renovation or remodel. Just got to have David and his team come do that free consultation and get that process started. The free consultation is right there on the website. It's OneBathAndClosets.com, OneBathAndClosets.com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, Our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency. The light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Friday's AFR, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar. Getting you ready for another weekend at the box as LSU welcomes Xavier and the basketball Tigers wrap up the regular season with Mizzou. Join us, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Some news out of Saints camp earlier today. Nick Underhill, New Orleans.football, first report of the news. Tyronn Mathieu has agreed to a contract extension with the New Orleans Saints. Going to lower his salary cap hit in 2024 from $12 million down to about $5.5, but they're going to add another year onto the back end of it for the New Orleans native. So now he'll be a free agent in 2026. He could opt to continue his career at that point or decide that at 33, that's enough. And feels like we're getting close to that point with Tyronn Mathieu. Tyronn, if not an elite level defender, has certainly been a dependable defender for the New Orleans Saints. He played 100% of the defensive snaps in 2022 and 99% of them last year. He's had 7 interceptions, 7 passes defense, forced a fumble recovery, 166 tackles, all that through 2 seasons. As disastrous as the Marcus May pickup was, Tyronn has been dependable. I would suggest in watching the Saints this year that Tyronn has lost a step. But what you get with Tyronn at this point is a guy who's available, a guy who understands how to play. He's in the right place. He's a phenomenal guy in the locker room and wants to be there. And while, yes, he would fit into the category of aging defenders with DeMario Davis and with Cam Jordan, it's a couple guys that are getting up there in age. He does bring some positives. And so I think this is probably a bit much for me to expect him to play this year and another year at a high level. That seems to me to be unlikely, but I'm not going to absolutely dump cold water on it because there's a chance. If he plays at the level he played at this year for 2 more years, it's a good deal. I just feel like we're getting to the point where that's maybe not going to happen. I hope I'm wrong, but I will say this about Tyronn. This is certainly a unique journey. I cannot give you a star athlete in the state of Louisiana who has had this kind of career arc. To unheralded recruit that nobody really cared about in his signing class, to immediate impact player as a freshman, to absolute superstar face of college football as a sophomore, to kicked off the team and out of football like that. Doubted whether or not he could be mature enough to handle professional football, goes out to Arizona, where Patrick Peterson is, ends up in Kansas City, Super Bowl champion, all-pro defender, and then in the twilight of his career comes back home where he's beloved and performs at a solid level. I cannot recall a fall from grace that was recovered from so graciously and fantastically over the course of now better than a decade as this. And it's been really awesome to watch. I was in the room when Les Miles walked out to the podium. We did not know why we were there. It was the assembled media, did not know why we were called in there in 2012. And he said, Tyronn Mathieu is no longer with the football team. And I was in the kind of the top right of the room when Les said I can still see it like it was yesterday. It was 12 years ago. And I just couldn't believe it. I mean, this is a guy who did things on a football field I had never seen done before. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I had never seen a defensive player routinely take the ball away from offensive players the way Tyrann Mathieu did. Not like, oh, that one play where he did it. The Meacham play up in Washington where they did it one time. No, Tyrann did it all the time. Running punts back, rescuing the SEC championship game. Just an absolute sensation that took over LSU football. And then to fall from grace like that and to work his way back, to be the humanitarian that he is now, the leader that he is now, the vocal voice that he is now in the media, the model citizen he's become. It's been a phenomenal story to watch. And this was a great signing for the Saints at that time. And because I still can see the 2011 Tyrann Mathieu, and now I'm looking at the Tyrann Mathieu 13 years later and going, man, he's just not quite the burst that we once saw. He didn't quite get where he once did. It's not that he's a liability. He's just not the all-pro that he was. So the question is, inevitably, you go from all-pro to serviceable pro, and then you go from serviceable pro to liability. We're not at liability yet, but where is that line? It's probably within the next 2 years. Not definitely, probably. And my hope for the New Orleans Saints is that it's not. I think this is it for Tyrann. I think it's awesome that he's made the living that he has, because it's hard now to go back and put yourself in the shoes that you were in 2012 and 2013, because it was not a certainty that Tyrann Mathieu was going to make it in the NFL, and he became a star. And I'm thrilled that he got a chance to come home and put on the black and gold. I got chills when Tyrann Mathieu and Jarvis Landry last year led that Who Dat chant to start the season. That's two guys from right here in the heart of the state of Louisiana in the South that got a chance to put on that black and gold, and that is a dream come true. And it's been great to watch. All that is so positive. But as I look at it and try to be objective about the deal and the money and the situation the New Orleans Saints are in, I don't necessarily question this year, which is where the contract was, but I kind of question the next year. And this is just the Saints' MO. What do? Well, you just move the money back, move the money back, move the money back. And this is moving the money back. And all of a sudden, you've got a Michael Thomas on your roster that can't stay on the field. And you may have a Ryan Ramczyk on your roster who can't get on the field. And you may have a Tyrann Mathieu on your roster that is diminished. But at least he's proven he can stay on the field. He and Demario Davis, though their best football is behind them, or for a length of time, their best football is behind them, they're on the field. You can count on that. And Tyrann will be on the field, it appears, in black and gold for 2 more years. Curious what y'all think about that extension for Tyronn Mathieu. If you like it or if you're a little nervous about the length of it at this stage in his career, you can get that in the Bayou Ford chat, kind of give us your thoughts on it. But that is the newest in the news for the Black and Gold. If you want Black and Gold coverage, you can find it on YouTube at Hunt on Saints. Hunt on Saints. You can subscribe to that channel. All your Saints news will just populate into your feed. We appreciate any subscriptions, likes, comments, reviews. All that helps us out a ton. We also invite you to go to Hunt on LSU for all your LSU football needs. We can post up there just about every day, especially now that spring football is on and moving. So our segment with Preston Guy earlier, my open to the show where we talked a little bit about LSU football, you can find that on YouTube at Hunt on LSU. Reminder, I'll be out at Rouse's, Burbank, and Lee in about 25 minutes. We'll be there from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. I do, even though we're locked in this studio here, I can hear some rumbling out there, imagining the weather is not awesome, but that doesn't mean we're not going to Rouse's. We'll probably be just inside Rouse's, Burbank, and Lee. We'll have gift cards. We'll have cups, hats. Got tickets to see Baton Rouge Zydeco as well. So come on by between 3 and 5. Say hey, spin the prize wheel. We'll talk some football, talk some baseball, and have an enjoyable Friday afternoon over there at Rouse's. Very much looking forward to getting over there, but can't go just yet because we've got to close down the show. We're going to do some Take It or Leave It coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electric. Neil and Melissa Boudreaux have been running Boudreaux's Electric for 40 years. And if you're outside in South Louisiana right now, you know there are some pretty nasty storms rolling through. There was some hail in New Orleans earlier. Sometimes these storms will knock the power out, and a lot of people work from home, can't really deal with a power outage at home. A lot of people have a commercial business. You need your power running so your employees can continue to function. If the power goes out, they can't. Boudreaux's Electric can help you with that. They're a certified Generac dealer, a premier Generac dealer. No job too big or too small. They can handle your commercial properties. They can handle your home, no matter the square footage. They'll customize a solution for you. Been in business 40 years, and they're going to keep on rolling down here in South Louisiana, whether it's spot in the 985 in Napoleonville or whether it's right up here in Gonzales. You can find them at Boudreaux's Electric. Give my friends a call. That is Boudreaux's Electric.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
It was a humid day, barefoot children play, looking for that summer shade, time just slips away. Some kind of hold on me, like cypress stumps, your roots are planted deep inside of me.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency. The light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local.
Coming up on Monday's OTB, we recap a massive weekend of sports. Women's SEC tournament, men basketball closing out the regular season, LSU baseball, LSU gym, and Spreadline. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Shout out to Corks. If you're looking to feed the office anytime soon, Corks loves to do catering orders, and they can help you out. Just give them a little bit of notice, and they can have big old pans of fried catfish, pans of fried shrimp, French fries. You can do baked potatoes as well, all your hush puppies, your honey butter rolls, coleslaw. They got you covered over there at Corks. Check out the menu, corksfishandshrimp.com. Michael Thomas has not stopped tweeting. He continues to do so. It doesn't make him look any better when he does it, but he keeps doing it. Some fan tweeted that the Saints are not being sneaky. If you're paying attention, they're feeding Jeff Duncan information to make the players look worse. That's what this fan is tweeting, and Michael Thomas tweets and pinned this to the top of his profile. He's obviously very proud of it. It says, "It's because we not yes men, so we cancers, but under a winning coach, we are looked at differently. It's a mentality that makes losers," wrong apostrophe there, "uncomfortable because they used to losing all their career." Clearly, I think he's calling Dennis Allen a loser there, which I'm not here to take up arms for Dennis Allen, but I don't think Michael Thomas understands what he's doing. I really don't. I think in his head, he thinks he's vindicating himself for all these actions. But all anyone with a functioning brain can look at and say, you just look unhinged. And your production is so poor and your availability is so poor that you couple this character situation in with it, and you just couldn't look worse. And maybe in an interview, he can vindicate himself, but on social media, he just looks awful. And he won't stop. Does he have an agent? Anyone to say, hey, man, we're going to try to get you another job here. You've caught like 3 touchdowns in 4 years, so why don't you just put the Twitter away and maybe go rehab? I don't know. It's shocking to watch. It really is. Someone who thinks in their head that they're doing something that is shedding light on something when in all actuality, he just looks worse and worse, calling people names and blaming everybody else for 4 years of absolutely nothing. It's something to watch. Michael Thomas. We got one thing left to do here before the weekend is upon us, and that's take it or leave it. Back.
All right, first one here. The Steelers have released 8-time Pro Bowler Patrick Peterson.
Yeah.
At 33, Peterson's time in the NFL is done. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. Somebody will sign him. Another guy that's awesome in the locker room. Another guy that is a good guy to have around. Another guy whose best football is behind him. I was just talking about Tyrann there, and that's certainly the case for Patrick Peterson, who made 8 Pro Bowls and was one of the best players of the decade. Someone will sign him. How well he plays next year is certainly up for debate. I probably would not sign him at 33 to chase down NFL wide receivers, but someone will give him opportunity.
Kansas are 9.5-point underdogs at Houston. Kentucky are 9.5-point underdogs at Tennessee, and UNC are 4.5-point underdogs at Duke. They're catching a combined 23.5 points on Saturday. Take the Blue Bloods. Take it or leave it.
So, look, Kansas going to Houston. Houston's not a fun place to play. They are physical. They are tough. They guard you. Kansas has got Dickerson, who's probably the best player on the floor. But I'm not betting against Houston in that building, even laying 9.5 points. Kentucky's going to Knoxville. I would consider taking Kentucky in 9.5 there. That's just a lot of guys who can make some shots late in the game to backdoor cover if I need it. So I'd probably take Kentucky. And then UNC going to Duke. Glad Filipowski's okay after that just tough injury he sustained with the court storming. That's a tight line, but I'd probably go with the home team and Duke there. So I'd take Kentucky. The other two, I'd probably lay off.
All right,
those three catching 23.5 may have never happened ever
Yeah,
before.
probably not.
I would guess never.
All right, moving on here. James Rapien from Enter the Jungle, a Bengals podcast, suggests the Bengals target Clyde Edwards-Helaire in free agency. The Bengals should sign Clyde and then draft Brian Thomas and then just change their colors to purple and gold. Take it or leave it.
I'm taking it. Obviously, I like the Bengals because they've got all that purple and gold on the roster. Clyde was such a seemingly perfect fit in Kansas City, and it just never worked. You thought with all the space that they create, all the different guys you've got to deal with, that you've got to go cover. At that point, you had to go deal with Tyreek Hill. You had to go deal with Travis Kelce. You really can't double Clyde, and then all of a sudden you get Clyde in a lot of one-on-ones, which is where he feasted at LSU, whether it was angle routes, option routes, or just beating guys in space. And Andy Reid never really unlocked what Clyde could be. And I don't know. Well, maybe he did. Maybe that's all he can be in the NFL, but it never got
Had injury problems.
Yeah, and injuries too. We just never figured it out. So I don't know if he'd be awesome, but I'm sure Joe would be all about it. And, Brian Thomas, if they got to replace Tyler Boyd and they want to go get Brian Thomas. I heard earlier today Hester saying that he thought that Michael Thomas would go to Cincinnati because he and Joe Burrow are very close from their Ohio State connection. I'll probably pass on that, quite frankly. But I would love it. Yeah, let's make the Bengals purple and gold. Burrow, Clyde, Brian Thomas, Jamar. Let's go score some points.
All right, last one here. It's pretty simple. Sous vide steaks. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I did it once. Have you ever done it?
I've never done it, but I've had them before. I mean, it's a pretty foolproof way of cooking them.
It is. I was unable. I failed in creating the crust I would like.
Yeah, it's hard to do it.
Because you've got to undercook it and then leave it on a little bit longer to get that hot skillet to do it. Like I like cooking the steak. I kind of like the process. It's like a game to me to get it right. And so you can do it so easy with the sous vide or with a meat thermometer, and you can get the exact temperature. And if I was cooking for a crew, that's what I would do. But I kind of take it as a challenge when I'm cooking to make sure that I cook it to my liking. And I generally speaking do. And I usually do that with a ripping hot cast iron, put it in for 2 minutes on either side, put it in the oven for 3 minutes, and then get it out of there. Like that's generally what I do with a ribeye. But I'm not opposed to the sous vide. I just didn't get the crust that I would want.
Yeah, I think it's harder to do it that way when you want to get the crust.
But it was cooked properly. But I'm going to get a steak tonight because my wife is. I said I was going to get one a couple of weeks ago and I ended up not doing that. But tonight my wife is going up to church for a little Lenten Stations of the Cross, and they're going to go to a Mexican restaurant afterward. So I'm by myself, going to get the Myers man down. I'm going to turn the baseball game on, and I am going to make a ribeye tonight. Then I will get at Rouse's as I'm going to Rouse's right now for my remote. So that is very convenient for me to walk in there, get my groceries, and then we're right out there.
A Mexican restaurant on Lent might be a little tough. I guess you can go shrimp, maybe.
You can go shrimp. You can get a spinach quesadilla or something. I think they're more interested in the margaritas.
Well,
than
that's
they are
probably
for what
that's a good point.
Eat.
That's a good
point.
point.
And you could just eat chips and queso.
Yeah,
the whole
that's
time
true.
if you want. So
true.
They'll get it figured out. All right, that's it for Take It or Leave It, and that's it for our show here on this Friday. We're always brought to you by Corks on Friday. Appreciate those guys for bringing you our Friday show. It's been a fun week here. As I've said a few times, this is my favorite time of the year to do sports talk radio. Spring football is very, very low emotion, just kind of some discussion that can free flow. I'd like it if LSU's basketball team was either very much in the tournament or on the bubble. That would be a little bit more fun, but they are playing, and there is something to discuss there. So hopefully they can get it done on Saturday. And then you've obviously got baseball that's trying to hit full stride here. So there's just so much for us to get to. The Saints have had news all week long as well. So if you're looking to catch our show on demand and you miss it at any point, you can always do it wherever you find your audio. 1045ESPN.com is a good spot to find all of our shows. They're all listed there. It's Off the Bench, Live at Lunch, Hunt Palmer Show, AFR, all on 1045ESPN.com. You can also find us on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts, you can find us. And then, of course, our full shows are archived on YouTube, as well as our two channels for this show, Hunt on LSU and Hunt on Saints. Those are all football. I know you folks are football heads all the time, all year round. If you just want football, want to cut out all the other stuff, you can do it. Hunt on LSU, Hunt on Saints is all football. So we appreciate you for checking us out. Thanks so much to Preston Guy for joining us in the first hour. He's, of course, a senior writer over at TigerBait.com. Thanks to Chris Demouy for joining us. I previewed LSU and Missouri in the second hour, previewed LSU and Xavier in the second hour, a little Tyronn Mathieu talk in hour number 2. And I opened the show talking about LSU's run game with a little bit of sound from Brian Kelly. If you're looking to listen to LSU this weekend, you need to pay attention to all of our stations here because there's a lot of moving parts with weather, women's basketball, whether they advance or whether they don't. You've got baseball. Eagle 98.1 is your home for LSU men's basketball. Also baseball on the other days when basketball's not playing. You can catch the ladies on Talk 107.3. You can catch baseball when basketball is on over on 100.7 The Tiger. They'll be moving around, but you can always find all of those, and appreciate Cade Wassan over there across the hall for making all of that work. That's it for us here on this Friday. I'm headed to Rouse's for a couple of hours. Invite you to come on by, do your grocery shopping, and see me, Burbank and Lee. We're back Monday, same time, same place. We'll be presented by Gulf Coast Office Products. Matt's about to drive you home and start your weekend on After Further Review. Have a great, safe weekend, everybody. See you Monday on the Hunt Palmer Show.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there.